Welcome back, everybody. We got another special treat. Look, we have issue number 15 of Kerrang, one of 80s heavy metal magazines. This one is from May 6th through 19th of 1982. And look, we got Foreigner on the cover. You're all Tony. Foreigner's not heavy metal, but according to Kerrang in the UK, they put Foreigner on their cover because they had a lot of hits in 1981 82. Foreigner. They were at the top of the charts, along with, remember, REO Speedwagon? Foreigner was up there. You could not go anywhere on the radio without listening to REO Speedwagon, Foreigner. But let's go ahead. You're here at KGTR. We're going to go through this magazine page by page, see what was happening in 1982, particularly May 6th through May 19th of 1982. And look at all the top bands that were out there and see what was happening. We'll see what was up. All right, let's go ahead. Look, we got Kerrang, Foreigner, plus Van Halen, Meatloaf, Prism, Rory Gallagher, Anvil, Status Quo, Saxon, Great Magnum compilation. All right, and this issue all in color. Rainbow, Part 2. Oh, more Rainbow. Remember the last issue was already Rainbow. UFO, Kiss, Gatto. I never heard of a band called Gatto. Magnum, again, Magnum. What are these band names? Scorpions, Blackfoot, Aerosmith, Jethro Tull, John McCoy, and Diamond Head. All right, these are the bands that are in this issue. Let's go inside of it, page by page. All right, look. Now they gave us Mayhem and the white lettering on black. Remember, I always complained that when it was on white paper, the font was too small, you can barely read it. Well, here, this is a little bit better. I can always zoom it up if I want to. But let's see if we can zoom it up real fast. So here, look. I blow this up right there. Just to give you an idea, look. Like AC/DC throat thrasher Brian Johnson will be appearing alongside them at a charity concert at the South Shields Legion Club. However, no date has yet been fixed for the event. Watch this place. Palace members. Let's see what else. So isn't that cool? Bernie Tomei has now quit the Ozzy Osbourne tour and flown home to continue work with his own band, the Electric Gypsies. Bernie was brought in as a replacement guitarist after the death of Randy Rhoads. But after completing 7 dates of the American tour, he found himself unable to carry on due to the emotional pressure. See, I told you. Poor little Bernie Tomei. Let's see what else. Yeah, so that was right there, Bernie Tomei. And that was right here. See right here? The cursor? I blew it up. I just read it. So yeah, so I was thinking about it. Big shoes to fill. And it's probably emotional playing Randy's music. Oh, and I believe someone told, or I believe he mentioned that Ozzy or Sharon said, here, go ahead and play his guitars if you want to, which he didn't. You can play through his rig, which I guess he did, but they also let him play through his own pedal board. That's kind of creepy, right? But maybe he had a distinct sound that Ozzy liked live, and he wanted him to basically carry on with those guitar tones. But he didn't feel, maybe it was Brad Gillis. It was either Brad Gillis or Bernie Tomei. They didn't feel comfortable playing with Ozzy or Randy Rhoads' pedal board. That's Randy's pedal board. I can see that's kind of eerie and creepy. You should be able to play with your own stuff. It'd be kind of cool to see if you can sound like Randy. Not play like him, but at least have his tone. But that's kind of eerie though, right? Because you're basically saying, look, he's gone. You can wear his clothes, play through his amp, play his... no, come on. You gotta like retire that stuff. You should retire the amps and the effects pedal boards and the clothes and the guitars and give it back to the family or the estate and go ahead and fill the shoes, but with your own gear and stuff like that. So, but that was Bernie Tomei. I thought he did pretty well. Again, you can hear Bernie Tomei. Type in Bernie Tomei, Ozzy Osbourne 1982. There's a couple of shows on YouTube. Yeah, on YouTube, audio. And it's not great audio, but you can hear him doing his best. So Mayhem pretty much gives you the latest buzz of 80s metal, right? Mrs. Thatcher's Secret Weapon, right? Where Are They Now? Super Jam, and UK's Top 30 Hits. Again, we're going page by page just to let you know what was happening. Screaming and Steaming. Steve Gett gets a taste of caviar and German nightlife with Foreigner. So Foreigner was huge. They were huge. They had a lot of hits. They got more mellower in the mid-80s, but Jukebox Hero was one of their biggest hits. Remember Jukebox Hero? I would equate Foreigner success with that of Billy Squier. Remember Billy Squier? Stroke, Stroke, Stroke. Those two bands, they're interchangeable. You could have one open up for the other, and it'd be like, the same type of music. Same with Rick Springfield, Jukebox Hero. But Foreigner was good. But they just got a little bit more mellower in the 80s. But here they are. They weren't heavy, but they were good, hard rock band. All right, here's more Foreigner. So if you're a fan of Foreigner, I'll be happy to read this for you out loud. Rory Gallagher, the new album Jinx, obviously before he passed away. So here's Rory Gallagher right there. Tour news. So we got Diamond Head, we got Rory Gallagher, we got Status Quo. I'm trying to read this. Saratoga or Saracen. Remember the band Saracen? And Spider. Look, here's Spider. I never heard of Spider, so someone needs to look up on YouTube. Spider Heavy Metal Band 1982. See what it says. See what you find. Prison changes shape. Vocalist Henry Small drops a bombshell on Howard Johnson. All right, there we go. Magnum, The Force is With Us. So there's a band called Magnum. So again, look them up. 80s heavy metal. See what you think. There is more on Magnum right there. There is Magnum right there. Let me get a little glass of water. Hold on. Let me get my glass of water. I love talking with all you people, but you gotta keep the throat hydrated. All right, look, Jethro Tull. There's Jethro Tull. He played the flute. I was never into Jethro Tull. Very popular in the 70s. I don't think he cut it in the 80s. His music was different. Let's just put it out there. He had some hits, and there were good hits, but I was not a big fan of Jethro Tull. But if you like him, that's totally cool. I'm not saying I didn't like him. He just wasn't my cup of tea. So how's that? Oh, look at this. Look at David Lee Roth in 1982. Laugh, I Nearly. David Lee Roth, always entertaining, often tongue-in-cheek, occasionally beyond description. Asia, Spider. And this is Diver Down. So this is April issue of Kerrang. And here they're talking about Diver Down. Isn't that pretty cool? Diver Down. All right, we got High Gloss. Status Quo again. I never heard of Status Quo until Live Aid 1985. Look, various artists. Hawkwind, Friends and Relations, or something like that. Rory Gallagher, Jinx. Right, look at this. Now, people thought Kiss already jumped the shark during this look. This, I think, is the Elder. This is not Dynasty. This is the Elder look. So this was not 80s metal. This, I like Kiss, but they went through so many metamorphoses. Like, you picture this Paul Stanley compared to 1976 Paul Stanley, night and day. Or 1977, 78 Paul Stanley, night and day. 1979, when they did Disco Dynasty, they got away from their rock and roll roots. But anyways, they went through a lot of changes. And here's Paul Stanley's change in 1982. And at some point, they probably realized bands look, in 1982, in one more year, Def Leppard's going to blow them away. Quiet Riot's going to blow them away. Motley Crue's going to blow them away. And Kiss is still wearing makeup. So they had to do something fast. Hence, Lick It Up. Alright, look at Gatto. Okay, I never heard of Gatto, so someone out there go on YouTube and type in Gatto 1982 live or record. See what you find. Look, Heavy Metal Demons. Britain's wildest heavy metal DJ and the Bailey brothers talked to Howard Johnson. Alright? Heavy Metal Demons. Diver Down, Temperature Up. Alright, the new, look at that, the new album. Now this album was great. I remember I bought this with the new Cars album. The Cars. I remember I went to FedMart. I think it was FedMart. Where you buy groceries and food and clothes. It was like a Costco back then. But I bought Diver Down and the latest album from the Cars. 1982 was a great year. This is 1982, remember. Alright, look at this beautiful Flying V. God bless them. Anvil. Wishbone Ash. Look at Anvil's LPs. So here's Anvil right there. But this was a heavy metal guitar. With the whammy bar, look. Angel City. Remember Angel Witch? Here's Angel City. Again, a continuation part 2 of the Rainbow Story. So here, look, Jolyn Tyler or Jolyn Turner, whatever. I keep saying Tyler. Jolyn Turner. I don't know why I say Tyler. Alright, but here's more on the Rainbow Story. Alright, what's next? More on Rainbow. They were big, but Stone Cold was probably one of their biggest hits of 1982. That's a good song, and it's a pretty good concert live. Not heavy metal, but hard rock. Rogers and Still In. Alright, here's Rainbow. Look. Richie Blackmore and his beautiful Fender Stratocaster. Look at his hair right there. They were heavy, but they weren't heavy metal. Again, hard rock. I thought Triumph was heavier. Right? So here's the bottom portion of that. Go back to it. Right there, see? So, sorry about that. Right, more of the Rainbow Story. If you're a fan of Rainbow, there it is. Again, more of the Rainbow Story. We just had Rainbow in the last issue. More of the Rainbow Story. So they did a part 2 for this other issue. Again, more Rainbow right there. Alright, Armed and Ready. These are the latest bands that they're recommending or for you to catch. Salem. I never heard of Salem. Dumpy's Rusty Nuts. Again, these bands probably lasted about 6 months. So here's Salem right there. They're trying to be all hard and heavy. Didn't work. And Dumpy's Rusty Nuts. Too comical. Merciful Fate. Now they came out in 1982 and they did well for themselves in the mid 80s. So kudos to Merciful Fate. Kudos. Here they are. Concerts. Upcoming concerts. You got Blackfoot. Samson. What else? So here we go. We got concerts. We got Goddamn Good, Blackfoot, and Samson. There we go right there. Look at this beautiful guitar right there. Look. Isn't that cool? Here he is again. Look at that beautiful guitar. Concert again. Meatloaf. Fear and Loathing. Again, not a fan of Meatloaf. Not to say he wasn't good. I'm sure he was very good. A lot of fans. He has a lot of fans still. I just was not one of them. Look at Palace. Solar Saxon. Remember Saxon? Here we go. Here's some Saxon, Limelight, and Virginia Woolf. Again, never heard of these bands, so let me know if you have. Right, UFO. Here's UFO. We didn't hear UFO. Look at this right here. It looks like a BC Rich. That's a cool design right there. BC Rich. Who's also making wild designs like that was Carbon. Carbon had some really cool looking guitars in the early 80s. They did. I think they were trying to compete with BC Rich. Alright, look at this. Look at that look. Gillen's John McCoy on bass. Isn't that pretty cool? Look at this bass. Looks like a Fender bass. That could be a Fender style bass right there. Pretty cool, right? Right? Kilowatt. Rory's Regalia. So Rory Gallagher's band right there. Right? Contact. Again, you want to contact the band, agents, record labels. There you go. Here we go right there. Look at these heavy metal Thunderbirds. Those Gibson Thunderbirds. Firebirds? Yeah, the Gibson Firebird. I like those names. Live in concert. Look at this. Live in concert. German Rock Spectacular. Rainbow. Scorpions. Status Quo. ZZ Top. Point Blank. Judas Priest. So the two bands I would go would be Judas Priest and Scorpions. Friday, 28th May only. So you would hope that it would be Scorpions before Judas or Judas before the Scorpions. And these bands right here are all openers. It's probably Status Quo opens up for Rainbow, who opens up for ZZ Top, or it's probably Point Blank, Status Quo, Rainbow, ZZ Top, Scorpions, and Judas Priest. That's how I think the lineup was. Right, more pen pals. You want to write to your pen pal? There we go. You want to write to the editor? There you go. Your standard classifieds on Kerrang. You want to order some merchandise right there? There you go. Like Guitar Heroes, Rudolph Schenker's Scorpions. Right now, I guess he harmonized with Matthias Jabs to some degree on some of the songs. Not known for his lead playing per se. Not to say he's not good. He's very good. But I think Matthias Jab was the lead guitar player for the Scorpions. But kudos to him. He's Michael Schenker's older brother, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's his older brother. Right, then we got Limelight by Glenn Shrimshaw. Never heard of Limelight. So let me know if you heard of Limelight in 1982. And Diamond Head. They've been other issues of Kerrang from 1981. So I think they're very popular in the UK. So one of these days I need to look up Diamond Head on YouTube. Right, more letters to the editor. There's David Lee Roth from Van Halen. A poem from Randy. Oh look, remember Randy Rhoads? Let's look at that real fast. Right, R is for Randy. Don't take it in vain. A is for Afterlife. When I'll meet him again. N is for Never will his fame go to. But I don't understand that. D is for Danger that nobody knew. Y is for you, who will always be dear. R is for Remember, so do it you here. H is for Hero, he was from the start. O is for Orchids, freshly laid on his heart. A is for Amen, God rest his soul. D is for Death, which took its toll. And S is for Sadness, you left with us all. A phenomenally distressed female, Randy fan. Isn't that nice? So for them to make space for Randy Rhoads, already a month and a half after he passed away, is nice. That's a nice little tribute. Right, Dylan Alphabet. Okay, seconds out for the next bout of slagging off. Alright, I think we're almost done. This is the back cover of the Kerrang issue featuring Steven Tyler of Aerosmith. Again, they made a miniature comeback in 1982 with Lightning Strikes. They were trying to do heavy metal. They didn't have too much success. And then they, with the drugs and alcohol and rehab, they disappeared for a while. But they came back huge in 1987. And we all know that album was like monster for them. Same with Def Leppard. They waited until 1987, got even bigger, right? So there is the issue number 15, released May 16th through 19th of 82, featuring Foreigner on the cover. Let me know if you remember this magazine, if you have this magazine. Let me know your thoughts on this magazine. Again, this was heavily concentrated with Rainbow. Not knocking Rainbow, but I didn't think they would devote 2 issues to Rainbow. The last issue was with Richie Blackmore on the cover, and a lot of pages devoted to Rainbow. Looks like this issue also had at least 6 pages devoted to Rainbow, at least. Right? I'm Tony. Thank you for joining me here on Page by Page, where we're going over vintage guitar magazines that you request, and I'll be happy to dig up whatever I have to share with you, to comment, goof on, reminisce, and just pass the good old days of 80s heavy metal. So here I am at KGTR, bringing you the best of 80s heavy metal, the way I know how. Guitar tones, guitar lessons, guitar concerts, guitar reviews, and metal magazine reviews, when we go back in time and remember how it used to be before grunge, after Kiss in the 70s. We're now into the 80s, and it's all 80s heavy metal. And according to this issue, 1983 and the US Festival hasn't even begun yet. So wait till we get to 1983. Just wait. Alright, thanks everybody for joining me, and I'll see you all in the next video.